Hey guys, as we continue our final drawings, just a few little points to consider. Small details, if you like, on how to make your futuristic city look even more convincing. Yeah, we're going to follow two-point perspective, we're going to overlap shapes, and that obviously is going to make our imaginary city look 3D. But we also talked about a few other little tricks of the trade that can help make things look even more three-dimensional or that they have more depth. For example, number one, atmospheric perspective. We mentioned this last time. Things that are closest to us are going to appear sharper, more detailed, and then as things move away far off in the background, they're going to appear more faded, not as detailed, less contrasty. This is something that we can observe in the real world, and we saw that demonstrated through a landscape photograph in our last lesson. Another thing to consider are clouds. Maybe we want to add a sky, either some gradation or clouds to add that space and make it more interesting. But remember, clouds aren't just stuck on little fluffy cotton balls or cartoon kind of thought bubbles. They also do follow the laws of two-point perspective and a sense of depth. Imagine, for example, if we were to draw a bunch of cubes above the horizon line, and we've already tried this, and we were kind of looking up at these imaginary clouds. Well, they follow VPs going to the right and to the left. And clouds that are closest to us are going to appear a little bit bigger, and those that appear further away will be smaller, and the angle will change. Here's what we mean looking at an example of a drawing. And we can see some pretty cool clouds drawn here in this amazing realistic pencil drawing. And here they break the picture plane on the left-hand side, but generally speaking, of course, the clouds on the left appear much larger. And then as we go down, they get a little bit smaller. And then these guys way off in the distance here get smaller and smaller and smaller still as we go to the horizon line. Think about that. Those changes of size and breaking the picture plane with your clouds if you want to create a more realistic looking sky. It will work. Third thing is contrast, and this is something we've talked about before, guys, with our shoe drawings in a background or our spheres in a background. Think about this also with your futuristic city. Now, I know this example here isn't the best. It's got a bit of a strong outline around the shapes, but let's define different values without having to draw an excessive outline. We're going to change values instead. So here, the highlights of this building in a two-point perspective drawing have been made to jump out, or they're emphasized, they stand out because the background or the sky has been shaded in. Here also we've got some, like a cloud in the horizon line. So think about how gradation, shading, background, and clouds can enhance your highlights so that you don't need an outline. We did this before with our sphere control blend. Another thing we want to keep in mind for our futuristic city, of course, is cast shadows and reflected light. If we've got an imaginary one single light source, it's going to cast shadows. And that can create a more realistic space. The objects look like they're real things sitting on a surface. So whether it's a sphere, a cube, a cylinder, or a kind of cone, each object or form will cast its own particular kind of cast shadow. So you can figure that out for yourself and try to keep the direction and the shape consistent. The last point we want to consider, of course, is that real life phenomenon we've observed in forms with a single light source, and that's reflected light. We should see just a little bit of a lighter value right by that cast shadow. We practice this, remember, in our spheres, but the same thing holds true also with cubes, cylinders, and pyramids or cones. That dark shadow on that side should not be the same as the cast shadow. It lightens up a little bit and then it gets dark. Why do we do that? Because, well, it happens in real life, but also we don't want to just create a separation through an outline. If you recall, we did this, ladies and gents, at the beginning of the semester with our control blend sphere, and we made a background and we created gradation to make it stand out, but we also had that area of reflected light right there. So guys, try to check out those details, try to apply them as best you can to your final draft for your futuristic cityscape.